In the middle of the winter break, it is time to dive in to Rangers' 2023-2024 season so far. We will do this at the end of the season as well, but there's not much transfer news. Instead of boring people with Deutsch, Yilmaz, Shankland, etc., let's move on and talk about our season so far. It's not been particularly great, so let's get stuck straight into it. In the league, Sima and Tav, both top goal scorer. This is more like the statistical side of it. The average home attendance, 48,878. There's your highest, there's your lowest, yada, yada, yada. Let's go into it, though. I think first, I'm not going to talk about the signings. I feel like that's like a separate tier list at the end of the year because, we've still got the January signings to go. But it's like you look at the players that we lost, and it's like we are much weaker. We are much weaker than we are last season, that is for sure. But let's look at our pre-season games. So, behind closed doors, we drew 0-0 with Livingston. We then beat Halashare SC 2-0. But we didn't, I believe they were both behind closed doors. But the next ones were not behind closed doors, of course. We drew. I say we drew. We lost 2-1 to Newcastle. Pretty bad performance. Sam Lammer scored. What's that all about? We then beat Hamburg 2-1. Again, lacklustre. Got pumped, 3-1 by Olympiacos. There was nothing, we were awful this game. And then we did come back, 2-0 down to draw with Hoffenheim. So, that's an alright result there. And then the game that happened most recently, Hertha Berlin got beat 1-0. Awful game, but not much to read into it. But it doesn't really give you much hope for the second half of this season. But let's look at the start of this season, shall we? And let's look up till the end of Michael Beale's tenure, as I can just get this right. I'm not too sure. Don't know if it's going to do it. Anyway, you know what I'm on about. So, kicked off the season straight away with this is the league first, so a really disappointing victory against Kilmarnock. Victory for Kilmarnock, defeat for us. Can't put the words out, man. It was that soul destroying. Awful way to start the season, and it kind of set the ground. It was pish, man. There's nothing really else to describe it. You need to kick off and win. It was always going to be a bit of a banana skin this game, and here it proved to be that, didn't it? We then went and beat Livingston 4-0. That kind of wrapped the wool over our eyes, so to speak. We then went away to Ross County. 2 pretty quick goals got the job done. That set us up in the league for, well, you know what? Let's beat Celtic at home. Their bitty injury crisis, one of the worst performances in an Old Firm you will ever see. Absolute disaster. We then come back from that. We win 2-0 against St Johnstone. An awful 1-0 performance against Motherwell. And then, to wrap it all up, we get pumped 3-1 by Aberdeen at Ibrox. Michael Beale out the door, had to go. 3 defeats in the league, and it wasn't even October yet. It's a disaster. It's a catastrophe. He had to go, and I'm not buying this. Oh, Michael Beale had to stay. Pish. No, I'm not buying it. Then after it, Philip Clement came in and, pumped St Mirren, pumped Hibs. Really lucky, in my opinion, to get a win against Hearts. We then beat Dundee 5-0, beat Livingston 2-0. International break happens, momentum's all with us. At this point, you've won those games on the bounce. You draw against Aberdeen, lucky to get a draw, but you're still undefeated. Defeat St Mirren 2-0, Tynecastle good. Then you beat Dundee 3-1, then we beat St Johnstone 2-0, then we beat Motherwell 2-0, and it's like, right, since Clement's come in, look at our form in the league. We've only dropped points in one game, and it was a drop with Tawdry, and you can kind of, it's forgivable because we played shite and we managed to not get beat, so, that shows the sign of potential champions. But then we take on the champions in Celtic again, and did we learn much from the first Old Firm? We learned a bit. I think on a different day, this could have went either way, but it didn't, and we get beat, and we need to accept it. We need to hold that L, or whatever way. I think that's the way it's going there in the webcam. But we can talk about Alistair Johnston, the VAR, but at the end of the day, the players that we signed in the summer, well, Michael Beale signed, are fucking shite and pretty much cost us this game, because if you had a competent striker up front, it would have been a different result. Definitely. And then we marked the next game with a 3-1 victory against Kilmarnock. So, the league this season, it was a disaster, right? It was an absolute disaster up until the end of September, right? And since then, you know, it's been pretty good. I know we've lost to Celtic, and many people feel like the work has been undone with that, and I totally agree. If you want to feel that way, absolutely. But the fact that in halfway through January, we feel that we are in a title race and we feel that we can go on and win a title. See, compared to the end of September, man, I was thinking, fuck, we are going to finish like 25 points behind them. Clement's turned it around. Let's see what we can do in the second half of this season. I'll give a rating about the whole season at the end. Scottish Cup has not happened yet. Of course, we do play Dumbarton in a couple of days. Scottish League Cup, though. Now, this was good. This was fantastic. Well, I'll say it was fantastic. Let's reel it in a wee bit. That win against Greenock Morton was abysmal. It was an awful game of football. Beal ball was in full effect. We then pumped Livy 4-0. Semi-final, great result, 3-1 victory, great performance. That was a very good performance. And then the final, it wasn't a pretty game, but James Tavernier stepped up and pretty much single-handedly won us it with that goal. Because I can't really say there were many players that stood out apart from him getting the goal. And sometimes that's the way cup finals are won. So League Cup, couldn't have asked for much better. I mean, unless we beat Celtic in the final, I mean, that would have been made it a wee bit sweeter. But here, I'm not going to complain too much about that. Then with the Champions League, 2-1 victory against Servette. Really poor, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a victory in the Champions League, but we were 2-0 up after 18 minutes, 15 minutes. Should have put them out of sight. They got that goal back, and then, at the second leg, we really should have beat them. But we went through to the next round, and that's all that matters. Then at Ibrox, we drew 2-each PSV. Different day, we could have won, but we didn't. PSV also could have won. I'm not going to pretend, it was a magical mystery tour. Then we went to Eindhoven, and I just didn't have the same faith that the last year. I knew it was going to go bad, and it did go bad. And yeah, there was a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of bad errors, a lot of piss poor defending, but we created fuck all in this game till they went 2-0 up, and then we had the goal. So yeah, I'm not going to pretend we were ever in this game. We weren't. We were shite, and we deserved to get beat, and it was a disgraceful performance. Then we go to the Europa League. Of course, we did top it, and there are our 6 results. Real Betis wasn't the greatest game, but here, when you beat Betis 1-0, a team of their calibre, I don't really care about the performance as long as you get the job done. Then we went to Aris Limassol and got beat 2-1. Honestly, worst performance of the season. Abysmal. The worst of the bunch. Then 0-0 against Sparta Prague. Large periods of this game for about 70 minutes was probably arguably the worst of the season. But then we turned it around and probably should have won. Then we beat them 2-1. Bit nervy ending, but no bad. Then at home against Aris Limassol, absolute dog meat. This was nothing short of shite. Yeah, we drew, but to pick up 1 point against Aris Limassol is almost borderline unforgivable. And Bale wasn't even in charge for either game, so work that one out. And then we beat Real Betis 3-2. Match of the year for me, that. I know it's result of the year because it's a great way result against a top La Liga side. I know we won a cup final, but those are the 2 results of the year for me. Absolutely hands down. Nothing really comes close. And then that is pretty much where we end it. And I'm going to give this season so far a 5 out of 10. And there's numerous, people can say, well, we're still in a title fight. We topped the Europa League group and we won a cup. What could you really want for that, Big Stevie? Well, I'll tell you, we absolutely wasted the summer. We spent money, and pretty much every player we spent money on, there have been a few frees that are alright, but pretty much every player we spent money on has been a dud. And I genuinely think, if we spent the money correct, well then I say if we spent, it doesn't matter if we spent the money correctly because we had Michael Beale at the fucking helm. But, if we had Clement in the summer and we spent the money the way he'd wanted it, I think we'd be top of the league by a decent margin. I do genuinely think that, but we've squandered it. And here, I'm buzzing the fact that the league is still on because, like I said earlier, I thought the 30th of September the league was done. I thought it was a complete and utter write-off. Champions League campaign, disaster. If I'm being honest, yeah, you've won 1, drew 2, and lost 1. That doesn't sound too bad. It sounds like it went either way, but in reality, scraped through against Servette. 2 each draw against PSV on paper is not the worst result. It's not. They're a good team, but then getting scud at 5-1's awful. Europa League campaign, it's such a mixed bag. It's like it's like eating a Domino's or something, but your dip's dog shite. If that makes any sense. I might not, but that's what it's like. Yeah, like you're eating a McDonald's chicken nuggets chips. Instead of sweet curry, it's sweet dog shite. That's just the way it felt. even though we topped and we're buzzing about it now, when you look back in it, you can't help but feel that Aris Limassol leaves such a bitter taste in your mouth. That's just my opinion. But hey, you're not going to. No one cares about it now. You're top. But going to the going to the Aris Limassol games, well, one of them, and watching the other one. I've watched every game, but you know what I mean. 1 out of 6 is fucking shite, and this group could have very easily turned on its head, but it didn't. And I'm going to give this season a 5 out of 10. I can't give it much more than that. We've played Celtic twice, lost. We've lost a lot of games in the league, and in my opinion, we should be doing a lot better in the league. And thank fuck for Philip Clement. I mean, if I'm to rate it since Philip Clement came in, I'm going to get I'm going to get Clement like an 8. So I'm going to get Beale like a 2. I think that's the difference. But, Clement did lose to Celtic. That's what takes a few points off. He did win a cup. He won the Europa League group. And, he's got us back in a title fight. So, big Clement, I'll give him an 8. Beale, I'll give a 2. But until next time, peace.